I'm here to conjure up an essence in the song. And it's not about all the frills. Like when you're in the moment and you're creating, just take away judgment and shame. You can deal with criticism later and just kind of like let it roll. Just let it roll out. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
It'll be the next album.
See, this is how we produce and write. It's
Yeah,
happening already. Yeah. I am not trained in music at all. You do not have to be a virtuoso in absolutely everything to be a creative, because that freedom is what allows creativity to come out. If you're just putting in this technical skill, um, it's actually not enough. Astronaut and I have had a really long relationship because I had never been so upfront about the anxiety that I deal with. I wrote this random poem about my anxiety and how I could only communicate it by likening it to me being an astronaut in space. I loved the song a lot, but I wasn't ready to share it. And I wanted it to be exactly like what it deserved. And it took the 3 years to find the arrangement that it deserved.
Good to go. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm speaking with you today, and also acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today and those who might be listening in the future as well. My name's Tess Guthrie, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm very fortunate today to be joined by the amazing Jaguar Jonze. Thank you so much for having a chat with me.
No, thank you, Tess, for having me. I am Jaguar Jonze, but my everyday normal life name is Deena Lynch, and my pronouns are also she, her.
Awesome. And for those people who might not have encountered your music before, would you be able to describe what your music is like? It's kind of a hard question.
Boom! Straight off the bat. I guess I'll go with a super umbrella term, but I basically write and create indie pop, indie rock kind of music. I love weaving in elements of cowboy guitar, like spaghetti western guitar lines. Everything is quite like rhythmic, industrial, cinematic, dramatic. Yeah, and sometimes, actually, most of the times, they're all quite deep, dark, intense, sad lyrics offset with this like driving drum beat that makes you think that you're listening to something upbeat. So I just like to trick everyone.
I love that. From having a look at your videos, it seems like you've got such a strong brand, and all of the imagery seems to map onto exactly what you were just describing there. I'm really curious as to how that has been kind of developed over the last few years. Is that something you've always had?
I think yeah, I'm an extremely visual person. So outside of Jaguar Jonze, I also have an art project called Spectator Jonze, and that's all digital illustrations. I truly love the visual side of music because I feel like it's a continuation of the world you began like constructing in your song. And you know, as humans, I feel like, you know, it's all about the senses. It's not just like the ears, and music videos, artwork, posters, all of that stuff just helps communicate what you're trying to communicate with the like oral side of music. And I have a lot of fun in also trying to say something with the visual side of music. So I always really care a lot about it and put in a lot of effort. And plus, it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. So naturally, I just love doing it.
Yeah, it really seems like that from having looked at your visuals. Is there anything outside of music that has really influenced the way that you've kind of done that world building?
Um, it's a hard one. I really think that everything I do stems from this need to express. And like I'm not actually that well versed on culture or art or film or music, like all of that. I'm actually really not that much of like a well-informed nerd at all. I literally think it comes from, maybe I do collect it subconsciously everywhere. Of course I do. But there's nothing that I'm hugely a fan of and am influenced by. It's more I'm influenced by my emotions and
Mm.
how can I express that. Yeah, and so I feel like I express it better when I'm using both the music and the art together.
That makes sense. I think
Oh,
that's a
I'm
really
glad
cool
it
thing to
does.
hear.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of think that that's been a bit of a theme throughout this series so far in speaking with different artists in terms of trying to like kind of mention that you don't have to have influences from a particular area or anything like that in order for your expression to be perfectly valid and awesome, and that it
Yeah.
can just come from your emotions, and that that's great. So that's
Yeah.
been really empowering
Well,
to hear.
the thing I like to put forward is and when you first approached me, I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm, good enough for this because I'm really not a technical person." But the reason why I decided to do it in the end anyway is because I'm actually also extremely passionate about letting people feel that they can just express regardless of artistic skill or technical skill. Like, I
Mm.
am not trained in music at all. When I write a song, I do not know what scale I'm playing in or like what chords I'm playing. Everything I say when I'm trying to like produce or direct or like, make decisions, I do not have the vocabulary or the knowledge, like education, to say it in a way that is musical or technical. Um, but it doesn't stop me from carving out my own path and,
Mm.
conjuring up like my own artistry and to be able to express myself. So I think I just want to like let people know that like you do not have to be a virtuoso in absolutely everything to be a creative.
Mm. Oh, I love that. That's really powerful to hear. And it seems like it's also not stopping you from being like increasingly influential in Australian music as well, both in a creative sense and also kind of in a social and political sense, which is really cool. Like I think I've heard a lot of people online kind of being like really supportive to your project for all kinds of like reasons and resonating it with it in all kinds of ways. So it's really powerful to hear that coming from you. I think being in that position.
Thank you. I literally think I stand here because of the support that I have around me. And like last year, um, was a huge wake up call in realizing that like life can definitely throw obstacles your way, but I have an amazing community around me who are super supportive and believe in what I do, and it just helped me like keep getting back on my feet and to keep trying as well. So yeah, it's I'm very blessed.
Oh, that's awesome. In terms of being creative last year, I noticed that you released a lot of music last year despite the circumstances. So I'm curious as to how you managed to do that.
It was all I had, I think.
Makes
It
sense.
was, yeah, I think to begin with, and the most obvious one is like I released my debut EP on the back of an ambulance when I was going to the hospital with COVID-19. And the reason why I decided to still release my debut EP was because everything else was taken away from me. That was like my one thing I had left to control and that I had poured everything into. And I was just like, well, why would I take that away from myself? That would just be the last thing that I had like invested in emotionally, financially, creatively, like physically. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna let it stop me. So I decided to keep, you know, pushing it out. And then I kept trying to write and put out songs because it's the same thing. That
Mm.
whole year last year it was about lack of control and facing adversities. And the reason why I even went into music and art in the first place is because it is like my saving grace when things go to
Yeah.
fertilizer
No, that
feces.
seems perfectly appropriate.
And so it was what made me feel like I had purpose, I had
Mm,
drive. Like every single release, it would just keep driving me to like create the art, to finish the music, to put it out there and do it all over again. It's just almost like this like routine and structure that made me feel sane and in control. So yeah, kept
gosh, that would
putting
have been
stuff
so
out.
intense.
It was really intense. I think I'm still processing the year because
Mm,
I definitely think there was a lot of like surviving to it. And now that we're kind of, well, for me, now that I'm more out of the situation of COVID and like the Me Too stuff as well, I can just kind of like take time for myself and like recharge and reflect and process and realize that like I took on a lot and to just kind of be kind to myself as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And are you feeling better now from COVID?
Yeah, definitely.
That's good.
There's definitely effects that I have had to deal with, but I think it's also going to make me a better, um, healthier person in the long run. It really took, like, it took 40 days to recover and then 6 months to properly recover physically. Like, when I first went on tour last year, um, in around the September, November mark, I struggled. I
Mm,
couldn't breathe on stage. I physically like had no energy. Um, I was battling fatigue a lot, but I now have like a way healthier diet, a way healthier routine. I exercise every day, a lot more frequently, and these are all basic things that I wasn't doing prior to COVID. I feel like mentally I'm better and physically I'm looking after myself the way I deserve because I really took my health for granted and it was a good like lesson.
mm. That's fantastic that you can come out of an experience like that, having learnt so much about how to take care of yourself and make your life like more enjoyable in the long term.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to be like a touring musician anymore.
Mm,
Um, but touring and playing shows is my favorite part of music. I love performing so much. It's like everything to me. So I was determined not to let it affect that. So I still think that I'm a lot more vulnerable to fatigue and like sickness and whatnot, exhaustion, but and losing my voice and stuff. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I feel like the world is waiting for me to like get used to it because we're slowly like letting go of restrictions and slowly we're able to do more touring and playing shows. So I'll just try and slowly figure out what my body needs as well.
mm. Yeah, it's nice to kind of remember that you don't have to have it all sorted from the get go and that it can be a
Yeah,
little bit of a.
totally.
Yeah. Um, that's really interesting. And I know that you're mentioning before that there's kind of two tracks in particular that were really different processes in terms of the time that they took to write and potentially the production around them and different aspects of them. But I'm really interested to hear the stories, particularly behind Astronaut and Dead Alive. Which one would you like to start with?
Let's go with Dead Alive because we kind of touched on it. Because Dead Alive is all about COVID
Yep.
for me. So I wrote that song with my bassist, Aidan Hogg. He's also a co-producer on most of these songs that you've been hearing. Um, we started writing that when we got stuck in lockdowns on our very first US tour in March. And he just came up this like with this beat. And I don't know, all these lyrics and melodies just flowed and I just typed it into my phone and it was kind of almost like effortless in a way. And that was because we had I don't know, there was nothing else to do except to stay in our apartment and just express the uncertainty and anxiety of what we were going through. We were trying to get flights to leave New York to come back home to Australia. Yeah, and so we just kind of started writing this song in our New York apartment with what we had, a shitty guitar amp, my iPhone, and plugging things into our like makeshift little recording studio. And we only did about halfway and then left it. Then we came back home to Australia. I had got a positive for COVID-19, was under hospital care, and I finished the song then. And
In
it
hospital?
almost, yeah, in hospital. So
Wow.
it would have, it was like the first half was like this, my experience of COVID-19 in the sense of finding out that we're now in a pandemic, figuring out how to get home, so much questions, so much anxiety, not like transparent communication. The second half is just more like the battle of COVID within myself and my like health. Um, yeah, so I feel like those lyrics came truly from like a in present. I don't know, what do you call it? Like in the experience that I was like enduring in that moment. And so there was
Mm.
so much to say, and everything was like effortless. And these metaphors that I kind of came up with where I felt like dead alive, like um, it just kind of flowed out. It was easy. We finished recording the song while I was in under hospital care. Still, the band worked together from their homes while they were under quarantine. Like we just used technology amazingly, and we're able to piece together this song from afar. And I feel like we're really lucky that we do have technology. And that's the
Mm.
main reason why, even though I was separated and like in solitary confinement, like we were still able to come up with these songs because of technology and the fact that we have a really great working relationship together. So we didn't need to be physically, in the same space to understand each other. Um, yeah, and so that song was easy, and so it's like the first one I released from my next body of work, from my second EP that's going to come out in April. Um, yeah, I think the production ideas, the lyrics, the melody, the chords, they just all seem to kind of fall in place together. Which then I guess leads me to Astronaut, which is like the complete opposite.
Yeah, he mentioned it was a long-term thing, astronaut.
Yeah, Astronaut and I are in a really deep long-term relationship. um, Astronaut, I think, I could be super wrong, but it's either written in 2016 or 2017. It was a really long time ago. It's probably 2017, but it was still a really long time ago. And the way I went about writing it was my guitarist had sent me this like 40-minute track of him just playing random guitar stuff once.
Mm.
And I just sat there and decided to start cutting up different bits of this 40-minute jam he was doing. And I came up with this like bass that I wanted to go off. Um, at the time, I was a lot different as a person. I was just starting to go into my mental health journey and face some things that I probably had been repressing for a really long time. And I think Astronaut and I have had a really long relationship because I had never been so upfront about the anxiety that I
Mm.
deal with. And so, around the same time as me piecing together this like guitar track, I also wrote this poem, and it was called Astronaut. And it's a complete different structure, but I wrote this random poem about my anxiety and how I could only communicate it by likening it to me being an astronaut in space. Um, and I decided that I would kind of take that as inspiration to write over this guitar track that I had cut up. So
Mm.
there's similar words and similar like ideas and phrases, but it is kind of really different. Um, yeah, and so I wrote that track. I wrote that song, and it was just this like vocal and guitar thing. I loved the song a lot, but I wasn't ready to share it, and I wanted it to be exactly like what it deserved. And it took the 3 years to find the arrangement that it deserved. So I initially actually recorded it um, in Brisbane, and then I recorded it again in Indonesia. And there's elements of the Indonesia that still remains, but it had to go through, I think it went through like almost like four different versions 4 different
Yeah.
arrangements till it landed to where it is now.
Mm.
And now Astronaut exists where it was developed over 3 years, and I feel like it's almost like my baby, or like a reflection of myself. And I had to grow myself for 3 years to get to the place where we're both, ready to share it with the world.
Mm.
But yeah, Astronaut, the one you hear now, there's bits that I recorded in the US, Indonesia, and Australia, and it was a long, long work in progress. But I'm really glad I did that, because I would have, I'm really proud of where it is now. And if I had released it with its first arrangement, it just would not compete to like where it deserved to be. Um, yeah, and I think I released this song as a single because it is so special to me. It's not a single track, it's not your banger. You're not going to be hearing it on the radio as like some kind of like up tempo, pop anthem. It's not that at all. It's like it's a ballad, it's brooding, it's slow burning. But I still wanted to put it out there because that's also me as a person. It's
Mm.
not just the single bangers. This is the side that I was finally ready to share. Um, and I wanted it to be a focus track, and to give it the attention it deserved, because it's also a part of my artistry and process. It's not just about those easy songs like Dead Alive. There's so many elements to being an artist. Yeah, like there's just beauty in songwriting in all different kinds of ways. There's no one set process that I follow with. I don't have like a set routine. Sometimes it's lyrics first, sometimes it's melody first, sometimes it's chord first, sometimes it's all together, all at once. Sometimes it's a poem first, and then extract from it and write things again, or I'll write lyrics for it, and then the next day look at it and go like, scrap all of that. I'm going to start again. There's just no set process to songwriting, which is why it's so hard to like articulate how I go about my songwriting, because yeah, I just have many ways to go about it, and I think it's really important not to like uh restrain yourself too much, because that freedom is what allows creativity to come out. I did a long ramble.
No,
Sorry.
it was all
Hopefully that was
gold.
informative. Okay.
I was just like, yes. So good.
Ah,
No, it was amazing. Yeah, gosh, there's so much in there that I'd love to ask more questions about. But I think the most kind of interesting thing in there, or the most salient thing, hearing that like right now for me, is just it sounds like um, it's hearing that makes me feel like it's okay to have whatever process that one has around songwriting and production, and that's totally fine. And also, I'm hearing a lot of importance and emphasis placed on getting the song to a point where one is really happy with it before you release it, and that doesn't have to happen overnight, and it's okay to kind of put it in the oven to bake for a while, and to even to not touch it for a while, and then to come back, and all of that is perfectly fine. And I think the more that songwriters feel permission to kind of go with their process and be empowered in that, I think the better. um,
totally. I
yeah.
totally agree. And it's also, there's that side to things, but also at the other side of things, like don't become too much of a perfectionist that you never let your
Mm,
babies see the world.
yeah.
And that's the other side of things too, is like, um, we could hold on to things so carefully and then never be doing anything and never putting yourself out there. At some point you just need to start putting yourself out there. The thing I do
Mm,
in all of like my songwriting sessions is I'm really not a technical person at all when it comes to just like going into like a creative process or a songwriting process, even with myself. um I put no rules on my lyrics. I just kind of let it be like this thing, like almost just like, yeah, let the brain vomit happen. You can always come back to it later. And I always find that, like, in the moment of writing, when I'm doing the brain vomit thing, I'm like, oh, that's so cheesy. Like, oh, so corny. Or like, oh, I can't believe that's what you're thinking and feeling right now. Or, oh, I have no ideas. But then you kind of like let it sit, you know, when you like smell too many perfumes and then you do the coffee bean thing, but like with music, there is nothing like a coffee bean thing except time. And so, like, I
Mm.
feel like when you take the time and come back to it, I've so often been like, oh, that's actually not cheesy or corny or like,
That's
you know,
actually great.
yeah, that's actually great. That's perfect. Yeah, maybe just tweak that one word, Deena. Like, you know, like it's so fine. Um, and that's why I think it's important, like when you're in the moment and you're creating, just take away judgment and shame. You can deal with criticism later and just kind of like let it roll. Just let it roll out. Yeah, just kind of like shoot it all on the table and you can do the like pruning later. Yeah, that's how I go about it. And in terms of production, like when people are like, oh, I need to spend 5 hours like figuring out what the synth sound is or the organ sound thing is, like I don't know, like should I put in a trumpet or like a fat fuzz on the guitar? Fuck it. In that moment, like fuck it. When you're creating, it's priority is songwriting, and
Mm.
then everything else can come later. And that's my process, and it's not necessarily the right process, but I'm just like, I'm here to conjure up an essence in the song. And it's not about all the frills and decorations surrounding that essence. It's just about the essence. I'll deal with what guitar effects sounds best later. I'll deal with what words explicitly says what I need it to say later. For this moment, just like figure out what material you want to like kind of work with, the like little juju energy ball essence thing. Um, yeah, because I think that's what needs energy and focus and like, yeah, I don't know. I hope that was helpful. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm terrible at explaining things.
No, you're fantastic at it. I really love that so much because I think that, I don't know, sometimes when I'm writing lyrics, it feels like, as soon as I put it down on the page, it's like published. But that's just not the case, you know? And so, like, if I
No.
feel like it's lame, it doesn't even make its way from my brain to a page. And then, I'll come back and kind of think, what was kind of the underlying emotion going on there that can kind of be explored to find, you know, better quote unquote lyrics, because it's subjective and everything, but that's just super empowering to be like, no, just like let it flow and let it happen and then go and refine later. I love that
Yeah,
process.
totally. I think so. I mean, I feel like if you want to go super logical and think about like things in the real world, like we never expect things to just land perfectly on the plate. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
if you're talking about like a physical sculpture that an artist is making, it's a block of wood, and they're just going to be like, um, okay, a block of wood. How many sculpturists that I know that do sculptures out of wood, but like, you know, getting a chainsaw and like hacking out the like essence of whatever they're
Yeah.
going to sculpt, and slowly they're going to refine it until they're using this like tiny little needle that's like, you know, carving out the little edges. And I feel like that that is the songwriting process sometimes.
Mm.
Sometimes you just like take a shit and it's like this perfect little like sculpture. And that's fine as
That's
well, you
fine.
know. Yeah, yeah, take a
Amazing.
songwriting shit and it's gold, you know. And that's fine, and sometimes you gotta like refine it. That's fine too.
But
Yeah,
sometimes it's great as is.
yeah, as is. Yep.
Oh, I love that. I think I heard a producer say at some point that like sometimes the best ideas start as like jokes.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, so
I
good.
probably have done heaps of those. Like, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a good
Yes.
point.
And seamless segue to production. Um,
Totally.
I'm curious about what the production process was kind of like on Astronaut compared to Dead Alive. It sounds like the whole process was way longer for Astronaut for sure, but um, just curious if there were any differences there, or if you kind of discovered any preferences that you have for the whole process while you're going through that.
Um, it was a different process because Dead Live also was created while I was in hospital, so I'm very like detached from the rest of the band. Dead Live actually was pretty close to the original songwriting demo anyway.
Mm.
It's the same kind of like beeps and boops and uh, whatnot. I feel like Dead Alive also is a reflection of how much we've grown as musicians and artists, and that we have this like particular, I guess, flow or process in place with the whole band. While Astronaut was like created at the start of like my project, and so there was a little bit of that like mining that needed to happen to land on that sound. Um, the way me and Aiden work is we just do back and forths a lot. Aiden is the technical wizard for sure. Um, and he interprets my weird words and sometimes ideas that I put into logic while he's actually skilled. But he understands it, and turns it into actual production. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. They're very different. Because also Astronaut, I wanted it to be very, very cinematic. Um, my guitarist actually composed all the strings on Astronaut as well,
Oh,
did an
beautiful.
amazing job at it.
Mm.
And because we're at the size where we can't hire out an orchestra, we had one violinist who could also play viola just record 100 times over. To the point that he was his own orchestra.
BYO.
Yeah, BYO. um, yeah, and with those two songs, I also had the opportunity to work with John Congleton out of the US. So basically, me and Aiden did the main production work. And then we brought in John Congleton, who has worked with amazing people like Angel Olsen or Sharon Van
Mm.
Etten, everything. Yeah, heaps of other like musicians you could think of. Um, to come in and just kind of add the decorations on top, and we work together to figure out what the additional production would be to kind of just like put the bow on the present and have it ready to deliver out into the world. Yeah, I don't know what my production process is except to just keep pumping out different versions and going by your gut feeling. For me, how I make decisions is how I feel. So
Mm.
if I click play and I don't feel anything, something's wrong.
Mm. Mm.
And then once I have that feeling, I'll go, well, what is making you feel like nothing or that something is wrong? And I'll be analytical about it, and I'll be like, there's no conviction in the guitar line, or the synth sound is just not quite right, or it's not cutting through. So we need it at a higher like frequency, or like, I don't know, EQ, yeah, I always go by feeling. It's
Mm.
not I don't ever have like a technical process about it. It'll just literally be like, what do I want? It'll be like art directing for
Mm.
me. I feel
Mm.
like that's what I'm like as a producer in person, is like I'll go in and I'll be like, I have written this song to make a huge fucking impact on the chorus. Why is the
Mm.
huge fucking impact not happening? And
Mm.
so I'll just kind of like break it down in that way. Yeah, so I kind of see songs as shapes almost, and I always am just like, I want it to be like this, and then like this, and like this, and kind of like this, and kind of work the arrangement so that it kind of follows that shape. And then when
Mm.
I listen to it, am I feeling what I'm trying to make other people feel?
Mm.
And then direct the production until it gets to that place. But that
Mm.
is such a like wishy-washy answer, but it honestly is the truth to how I work.
No, that's awesome. I think it's really interesting because I think there's a bit of a like misconception that I certainly grew up with around kind of socially, particularly like women and gender diverse musicians when they're working with a producer. It seems like there's this false assumption that, you know, particularly if the producer is a man, then they're kind of running the show and they're sort of like the mastermind behind everything that's going on and the decisions that really make the track the track. But it sounds like for a lot of people, yourself included, like it from what I'm hearing, like it absolutely sounds like the work of a mastermind behind the track, and that, you know, as you say, like you're the director who's kind of, using the skills of other people to execute your vision for what the song is going to be, which I think is highly technical. But
Thank
I
you.
think that, no worries. But yeah, I think it's, those kind of stories need to be heard more, because I think for so many songwriters, particularly women and gender diverse individuals, it can feel a bit like, if you rock up to a production situation, that all of a sudden your vision doesn't matter anymore and it's kind of up to someone else. But I think, ideally, like, relationships should be that the producer is there to help you express your vision more accurately, rather than, just kind of take over. So I think
Mm.
that's really cool to hear the way that you work with the people in your team.
I'm really lucky that I have like an amazing band around me who understand that like my skill set is really difficult to put forward. And what you said literally just actually kind of like touched me, because it's my everyday battle is to put forward my worth in this like industry that can be riddled with ego and like technicality. Um, I would say like my skill set as a person are intangible traits, and sometimes people find it difficult to recognize the intangible traits that are actually driving the entire project. So
Mm-hmm.
just getting acknowledgement for that just actually hit me in the feels, because if I was to barter with someone and say like, yeah, I'll do this for you if you do this for me, it's very hard to barter with my skill set, because they're kind of these intangible skills of creativity or art direction or like marketing or branding. They're all just this like really hard concepts to grasp, or you know what I mean, like consulting
Mm-hmm.
or management. It's all just like, what is that, what is that? It's this like
Mm-hmm.
wafty thing, while someone else can go like, well, I can do your plumbing,
Yeah,
or
right.
like, yeah.
Yes. And yet, if
Does
someone
that make
who
sense? Like, do you know what I'm
absolutely,
trying to say?
yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like similarly, you know, uh, like I have complicated feelings about that myself as well, because I think up until very recently, I didn't think that I was able to kind of even claim the title of like a producer, or like the identity of a producer, because I wasn't like a sound engineer.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
whereas,
Yeah.
whereas like I
Yeah.
still have feelings about it, and like it seems like you go through this with Logic as well, but I kind of plug away on Ableton, getting demos and things like that, and often bits and pieces of that will end up kind of in the final track, and yet it feels like there's this lack of permission to kind of inhabit that role and be like, no, I'm a producer, like I'm the person who's behind this kind of overall vision.
Yeah.
So I absolutely resonate with that, and I think like the more kind of conversations about this kind of thing, and seeing other people inhabit roles like that who aren't necessarily sound engineers, I think it really helps me to feel kind of permission to inhabit that as well. So it's definitely
Totally.
super meaningful for me.
You've said it super well, and I think the best like comparison in the creative world is like how art directors are
Mm,
respected. And that's not because art directors are the ones behind the camera, or filming the thing, or actually painting the thing, or drawing the thing, or styling the clothes. It's because they're the one with the vision.
mm,
And they're creating the essence of everything again. And I feel like producers are that, but often they also come hand in hand with the more technical skills. Like they are able to be sound engineers as well, but we can't forget that like if you're just putting in this technical skill, um it's actually not enough, like there is no artistry behind it if you're just being technical about it.
yeah.
um and so like I have to remind myself as well that I have worth as an artist and as a
Mm,
producer, because yes, maybe I don't have the technical skill. I'll muck around and play with ideas and very slow at things, but I have ideas and I have creativity and I have a vision, and
mm,
that's everything with the
mm,
Jaguar Jones project. And
mm.
that was like, I forget a lot of the times. It's like when you approached me for the interview, I literally was like, oh no, like like
Yeah, yeah,
no,
totally.
yeah, like I just like I can't, I don't have anything cool to say. Like I'm not going to be like, there's this cool like key function that's like command F dash 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 star and it'll write the song for you, like,
AI's come a
but
long
yeah.
way.
Yeah, I just use AI to write songs now.
Yeah. No, but
Sign up now, subscribe.
like and subscribe. Yep. No,
Yeah.
I love that so much though, because I think you can really tell from looking at your project from kind of any angle. You know, like if you listen to the music, or if you look at the visuals or the videos, or even like the social media presence, or kind of the way that you might appear in like articles and things like that. You can tell that it's all coming from the same mind, and that there's
Thank
there's
you.
like there's a plan. you
Thank
know
you.
yeah, so I think that that's something that's really like attractive to people as well. And you're totally right in that if someone just had technical skills and they didn't have vision, then you can be as awesome as you want at like sound engineering and things like that. But then it doesn't necessarily make you like an art director, as you've mentioned.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
think yeah.
I would say it gets taken for granted a lot, but this is why, and it comes back to everything in life. You got to have great people around you,
Mm,
healthy
mm,
relationships, a supportive network, because those who truly understand and appreciate you for like as a person and as an artist will always see that side and
mm,
collaborate with you rather than like try and swallow you.
mm,
And it's something that I've battled with a lot. Because I was constantly letting myself be swallowed. But as I find my like footing in the music industry and have a stronger grasp on my artistry, I'm realizing that like I do have value and I do have something to say. And there's space for me to say it, and I shouldn't like let people, you know, take that over and swallow me up. So it's
mm.
still a work in progress for me as well.
For sure. Has there been any kind of key relationships that have influenced that, or any like mentors or collaborators who have kind of made you feel particularly enabled or kind of in that safe space to express yourself?
I really love my band. Like, I
Mm.
honestly really love my band. They are three males, um, and they're actually some of the best males I have in my life. And I've been quite vocal about things in the music industry, and I just keep coming back to the fact that I feel so lucky that my band, but
So,
we all work together like with no egos. Um, and just want to lift each other up and collaborate, and we always put the song first and the music first and the project first.
mm,
And I've been in heaps of like dynamics in relationships where egos and narcissism and entitlement mess everything up, but working with my amazing band, and they don't understand everything that I do, but are always open to learning what it is that I do, and the patience and kindness that comes with it, and generosity. Um, yeah, I just feel like I'm very lucky to have a really good band. Yeah, and
that's
they're everything.
fantastic.
You spend like weeks with them on tour. Um, you get stuck in New York and it's very tense, but we still work through things. Like,
Mm,
I just feel like it would be a lot more difficult if like I didn't have a good band around me. Yeah.
for sure. Particularly if you're, yeah, stuck in a hotel room.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Not even a hotel room. It was just like an apartment living room.
Oh gosh. Oh wow.
We had our moments, but we worked through it. And like even with the latest tour, we had to just like go through all the like COVID restrictions and whatnot. But
Mm, mm,
yeah, it's just I just keep realizing that like uh, there are good people out there who appreciate what I do. Um, you just got to spend time with those people, not the wrong ones. And like I feel like I'm getting there.
And you can totally feel it, like, which kind of category people might fall into as well. I think if you kind of listen to your instincts as well. So,
Yeah, definitely listen to your instincts. Definitely. Um, I think it's quite natural in an industry like this where there's like um, I don't know, clout or fame or like all the like fancy shiny stuff that people kind of get distracted by, for
mm,
that to bring like a lot of like hidden agendas and ulterior motives,
mm,
and also like ego battles. but you just have to navigate through them and have really strong boundaries, and to listen to your instincts so you can filter through that and bring together a really good team around you. Because the truth about the music, being an artist in the music industry, is you cannot do it on your own. That's like literally, you can't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many aspects, like a booking agent, you can't do it on your own, publicist, you can't do it on your own, all of the little elements of being an artist in the music industry, you can't do it on your own. So just have good people around you. It takes time.
Gotta find them.
Gotta find them. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned before that your EP is coming out in April, did you say? Oh, so exciting. Is there anything else on the horizon that you wanted to chat about, or do you have any kind of big dreams of, a project that you'd love to do one day, or a particular type of show or anything?
I'd love to just do shows again.
That's a good point.
Woo! Yeah.
Woo, shows.
Yeah, I actually would love to do um, more festival shows. I feel I only have really done one festival show, and that was
Really?
Falls. Like, yeah, like one main festival,
Mm.
and that was Falls last year on New Year's Day.
I mean, what a festival
Uh,
though, if you're going to do
Oh
one
yeah,
festival.
totally. Yeah, no, totally, totally. And then COVID happened, and then it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, I felt like I was just about to get onto like, the bit I love, which is playing like these shows that would be so energetic. So
Mm.
that's what I would love to do, is like to be able to play shows more freely without people having to sit down. But I'm lucky to even have been able to play those shows, because if we're in any other place, we wouldn't be able to. But yeah, I'm just excited for like the project, the second EP to come out. It's been a long work in progress. It's almost going to be like a whole year of like working on it. And that's because of all the chaos that unfolded in 2020. So
Mm.
I'm really excited for it to just come out, and for the world to, yeah, see it, hear it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And for anyone who isn't already like in touch with your music, what's the best way for them to, I suppose, like discover it for themselves?
It's available on all your favorite streaming platforms. That
Nice.
sounds like such an advertising spiel, like dun dun dun. It's available on all your favorite streaming platforms. But if you want to dive into like the visual world, I highly
Mm.
would encourage you to look at the music videos on YouTube as well, because I put everything into making it happen,
Mm.
and yeah, hopefully people enjoy it.
I love that. I think a question I've been enjoying asking people is like, what does meaningful support from people who enjoy your music kind of look like for you? Or what kinds of things like do kind of touch you as being like, oh, that's really nice. Like I feel like, people are really getting behind me. Like what kind of actions can people take to kind of translate that sort of support?
For me, um, affirmation and acknowledgement and appreciation.
Mm.
It doesn't need to be much, but when a person writes a DM to me saying like, "Hey, your music changed my day today, and I really am thankful for you putting this out there. Keep doing it because I support you." Even
Mm.
that just makes me go like, "No!" like,
Love that.
like,
Yep, yep.
I'm like, I'm doing something. Like, so, like, it's literally the tiny gestures. I started a Patreon last year,
Awesome.
uh, and it's small and it's great. I have probably like 35 people on there, and it's turned into this little community, and it made me just like, it just floored me at
Mm.
how like supportive my like community is around me. And I get to share the behind the scenes with them, and we did like a Christmas Zoom hangout all together wearing like
Oh, that's
Christmas
great.
gear. Yeah, all of that just makes you feel like um I'm doing something right, I'm doing something meaningful, and that people are there for me as well, like,
Mm.
and understand that I also am a human being,
Mm.
and
Mm.
that like they give back to me just as much as I give to them, and it's just this really wholesome, beautiful, like, yeah, relationship. So yeah, I literally, for me, is just like the support is means everything to me. Even when someone comes after a gig and like just, touches me on the shoulder and was like, that was fucking amazing, thank you so much for coming here, I'm just like, "Ah," like again as well. So yeah, when I'm acting all cool when it happens, though, I'm just like, yeah, no problem, yeah, thanks, yeah. But inside, I'm literally just like, thank you for taking the time to say that to me.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Oh, I'm so embarrassing.
Oh, so good. Just the internal tears.
Yeah,
Such a river.
internal tears. Totally, totally. I feel like internal tears could be like an 80s pop song. Like
Yes.
internal
Yes.
tears. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
It'll be the next
See,
album.
this is how we produce and write. It's
Yeah, yeah.
happening already. Yeah. The art direction is there.
Oh, so good.
Oh,
Such vision.
yeah, such vision.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all of your time in chatting with me about all of these things. I feel, yeah, personally super touched by hearing some of your story and the lessons that you've learned for yourself, and so much messaging about like giving yourself permission and kind of taking away shame from different processes. So love it.
Totally.
Thank you so much.
Totally. No, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for your words too, because it touched me
Oh,
and
pleasure.
reminded me of things that I had forgotten about too. So it's always like this. Conversations like this are so important. Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks, Tess.
Pleasure. Awesome.